Say that quote one more time. For every day you take off.
For every day you take off, it takes 2 to get back to where you were before that day you took off.
Hey, Nick Thompson, welcome to the FITTEAM show.
It's good to be here.
Happy to have you on and get to know a little bit more about you and share your story.
That sounds wonderful.
So let's start with your childhood, where you grew up, where you're from, and anything else you want to add for someone that's just watching, maybe seeing you for the first time. You want them to know about you.
All right. Well, I was born on Christmas Day of 1982. That's how I got my name of Nick, after Saint Nick. Came about a month early, so they had to change it being born on Christmas. Born and raised in Coral Springs my whole life. Moved up to Gardens 7 years ago, so the first 29 years of my life was Coral Springs.
So Palm Beach Gardens 7 years ago. So what hobbies do you have? Obviously, we'll get into golf, and that's obviously what you're known for, professional golfer. But what hobbies did you have growing up as a kid?
I was a diehard baseball player. Baseball was life. Played a little bit of golf, but starting at age 4, it was all about baseball. Some other hobbies that we had a weekend house that was on a lake in the center of Florida. I loved jet skiing, hydrosliding, skiing. It was if I didn't have a baseball tournament or a baseball game that weekend, we were up there doing that.
Awesome. When did you start playing golf?
Technically started at about age 7, but didn't really. I would say I actually started playing a lot when I was like 10, 11 area.
10, 11. And when did you get real serious about it?
The 11, 12 area. When I started at like 10, 11, I progressed quite rapidly, and you could see like the potential. And then I started playing tournaments in the state of Florida, and then maybe a year or so after that, I started moving around the southeast, and then branched out from there.
So how did you practice with school? What's your story on that? We heard an interesting story from Jay Marie, how she basically just went full time and was doing online schooling. And so how'd that work out for you?
No, I went to your typical public school from 8 to whenever. But in middle school, once my parents moved to Eagle Trace, I would go out and practice some in the morning, and then go catch the bus to school, go to school, and then practice in the evening. It's kind of tough in middle school when you get out at like 3:30 and it gets dark at like 5:30. But I did as much as I could. I lived at the golf course on the weekends, just a sun up to sundown range rat. Played with my dad in the morning on Saturday and Sunday and his buddies, and then I'd hang out there and play with my buddies in the afternoon and practice all afternoon. Somebody would pick me up at dark.
When did you decide or think that you want to take your golf game like really serious and even go pro?
Well, I mean, when I started really getting into it, I progressed through the Florida rankings pretty fast, and along with like Texas and California, it's probably one of the strongest states there is for golf. So that said a lot for juniors. Then I progressed my way through the national junior rankings quite nicely, and it opened up all these scholarship opportunities to, I wouldn't say anywhere I wanted to go, but the majority. I mean, I was top 3 in the country, and I ended up choosing Georgia Tech, and very happy about that. It was a great spot.
So talk about your experience at Georgia Tech.
Oh, it was amazing. 4 years there. I graduated in 3.5, so my last semester was absolutely amazing. I had one class, just chose not to walk, and we went up there, we practiced. We had great golf courses to play at. We're members at East Lake and Golf Club of Georgia, but there are tons of great golf. There's tons of great golf in Atlanta to enjoy and play. And we had our own range in downtown Atlanta, and it was great to practice. The schooling was excellent. The people were great. I love the city of Atlanta.
So did you know going into Georgia Tech, you knew one day you'd be a pro golfer?
I mean, that's kind of how it goes there. We were number 1 3 of my 4 years, and you kind of go there. You're a pretty stout golfer, and not everybody turns pro, but the majority do. Give it at least a try. It's a tough profession to make it in because, the top maybe 1/10 or 1/100th of a percent make it. So it's always good to have that degree, to have a fallback plan. And Georgia Tech has a great degree, so no matter what, I was going to be okay.
So when was it, do you think that, obviously you said, in your teens you started getting into some tournaments, you went to Georgia Tech. At what point do you think it was that you thought I could be a pro golfer?
I would say when I was about maybe 18 and I signed to go to Georgia Tech. I think I signed at 17, but when I was like 18 and I was progressing through all the rankings and I was going to one of the top golf schools in the country, it was really in my mind.
Right. So momentum's building. Obviously, that's a huge signing. You're probably starting to think bigger. And after Georgia Tech, tell us what next steps in your life.
Well, I mean, it was funny too. Actually, in my final semester, my one class was it was essentially a senior paper. I wrote a roughly 100-page paper on my career/life plan, which actually opened my eyes and made me realize there are so many options, because I took one route, professional golf, one route without going professional golf, and then up the professional golf I took, if I made it, where I'd play, if I didn't, where I would go. And it gave like all the opportunities. I did interviews, and it opened up my eyes to what there was.
So for those that might have missed that, say that again. You wrote out a life plan, two
It
of
was
them.
like
'Cause that's actually incredible.
it was like, yeah, kind of a life plan slash business model of like, option A was if I turned pro, option B was if I didn't. And if I didn't, I went out and I did 5 interviews for jobs in Atlanta and had lined up jobs if I needed to. And they knew what I was doing it for, but they took it as if I was truly applying for their job at the companies. And the other one was turning professional, which is obviously what my plan was. That was option A. And then from there, if I made it through Q school, and if I didn't, the mini tours. If I did, it would be PGA Tour, nationwide then. Now it's Corn Ferry Tour. But it was in depth, and actually my teacher thought it was an incredible piece that he really enjoyed reading, and he could tell that I really enjoyed it / put a lot of work into actually doing it.
So let's get into right after you did your plan A, plan B. Obviously, you turned pro golfer. Talk about that experience and the high you got from that.
I took plan A, but I put it off for about 3 or 4 months, because I stayed amateur after I walked in college, and I wanted to make the Walker Cup team. So I played 5 or 6 amateur events that summer, played really well, and by the time I had turned pro, I was the #1 golfer, and I made the Walker Cup team. We played it at Chicago Golf Club and we won. So that was just another one of my goals prior to turning professional. That was reached, and absolutely incredible event. Then I turned pro, went to Q school, and it was nice. I breezed through first stage, I won. Second stage I got injured, but I made it through by a shot or two. And then finals I played really well and finished 3rd.
That's awesome. So tell us how it was as your first experience as a professional golfer.
You know what? It was different than college golf, but in a new high, essentially. You got all kinds of different adrenaline going, and I played 2 little mini tour events just to kind of keep myself going before first stage. Went over to Tampa for first stage. Had a little bit of a rough finish the first day and shot 75. And I was in I don't know, it had to have been 50th or 60th place. I played the next day. I finished poorly on those same 3 holes and shot 69. And then actually there was a possible hurricane coming. So they teed us off in the 3rd round and said, look, guys, possible hurricane, you're just going to play all day. And I was, I believe, the first group off the back 9 and shot I want to say it was 65, 62. And with those numbers, I knew I had made it. So we got in the car and we just started driving home. I got halfway home and realized that I won second stage from about the 30th position. Or first stage, sorry. And then it was it's another month till about second stage. Went to the Ombre in Panama City and played nicely, but the second or third round, I hit a ball in the trees and didn't see the root under my ball, and I tried to take a full swing and hit it up and out of the trees, and I hit the root. It actually bent my club so that it was like the club head was 6 inches from where it should have been, and I strained like everything throughout my forearms. I played the next 2 days on ibuprofen, and luckily was played well enough to make it by 1 or 2 shots. And that's honestly, then now it is as much, but then that was the biggest thing because that got you status on the web tour or nationwide tour at the time, and that gets you starts. So you're like, final stage is all icing on the cake from there. Then you just go out and try to do one thing, and that's make the PGA Tour. And that's usually like early mid-December. It was in Orange County National in Orlando, and I went out there. Had a little bit of a rough first round, and at the time it was 6 rounds. The next 5 rounds, I think I shot like 25 under for those rounds and finished third.
Oh, that's great. So talking about some of these challenges, let's start back early on and then work up from early on college and then pro. Talk about some challenges professionally that you had to overcome.
I think one of the biggest challenges professionally is in college you play, I think we played like 11 events a year, and all of the travel's done for you. Pretty much what you have to do is you have to pack your bag with the proper outfits and show up to be picked up by the transportation to the airport. When you go to professional golf, all the flights are done, all of your bookings done, so all you have to do is play golf in college. It's great. Then you get to professional golf and you're playing, I think my first year I played like 36 events. So now I've over tripled the amount of play, and my agents and I have to do the booking. So it's like, oh boy, you've got a lot more on your plate when it comes to all the bookings, the triple the events. And, I mean, the pressure's a little bit more. You're playing for your livelihood.
Right, a lot more pressure. And I don't think people understand that it's a grind for golfers.
Oh, it is.
When you're done on Sunday, you're looking ahead for that next week on Monday. Talk a little bit about that. It's almost like nonstop.
It is. I mean, people at home, they think, all right, this is pretty cush. It's nice. They play golf Thursday through Sunday. But most don't realize that you sometimes do a travel day on Monday, you play on Tuesday, you practice or play on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then you do it all over again. It's, you get to kind of the point where you do the same thing over and over, and you're like, you've stayed in so many hotels, you've traveled so much that you're like, man, which hotel am I in this week? And then you're like, which room is it? And I mean, you wake up in the mornings, you're like, all right, today is practice round day, so it must be Tuesday. It's not like it's the 5th or it's September. You learn it by Monday through Sunday, and that's it.
It's different because obviously it's not a team sport, so a lot of times you're not traveling with the same people, and it can get a little lonely, I've heard. So talk a little bit about being in a different location every week, and sometimes you may have some of the same people traveling with you, but a lot of times it's yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is like, because I experienced it for my first 7 years of 7 years of travel. I did it all by myself. I mean, maybe here and there I had a friend or I had a family member out, but overall it was generally me. And I mean, sometimes you travel with your buddies on tour, but not always does it work out to where you guys take the same flights. Somebody might miss the cut, go home, or fly to the next event early. You might want to fly on Sunday night. You might want to fly on Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like a lot of puzzle pieces that have to be put together. So your biggest thing is you have to get yourself and your stuff to the next event. And I mean, it is kind of lonely when it's just you because, I mean, you're in a hotel room alone. You don't see family. Yeah, you talk to them on the phone, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as sleeping in your own bed.
So what goals have you accomplished that you want to share with everybody? Obviously, starting in your teens has probably become, to play golf at some level, and they kept progressing to go to Georgia Tech and then to become a professional. So What else can you
Um,
share that some goals that you've accomplished?
I mean, I've accomplished the majority of my goals in the fact that I wanted to be a top junior. I think I got to second. I know I got to third. I might have been second in the country. So, I mean, that was one of the goals. I got into a top school, Georgia Tech. I became the number one ranked amateur in the country. So, that was obviously another goal. Making the Walker Cup team, making it on the PGA Tour. And, I mean, the only goal that I haven't quite accomplished is being as high as I've wanted in the world golf rankings in my career. I mean, I've played nicely and played many years on the PGA Tour, but haven't quite bumped it up to where I'm a top. I've played, but gotten in the top 50 in the world golf ranking.
Share with us, because it takes a team, so there obviously is some people behind you. Just share with us some people have supported you along the way, and once you get into that, then also like talk a little bit about your family and that kind of support.
Yeah, I mean the team is important, and it's for many reasons. Some people believe in like I believe in having family around me. I My wife and my kids are around me. I talk to them all the time. I FaceTime with them. They travel with me some. My parents have been the biggest influencers throughout my whole life in golf and everything I've done. My sponsors are important. My agents, I consider my agents family. Um, One of them, Matt Judy, went to Georgia Tech, and even when I was in school, and he wasn't an agent at the time, but I always saw him. He was always around the golf team, good buddies with a lot of the guys. So I knew him well before golf. And Bobby Kreuzer lives about 4 miles from me. I see him plenty, and I consider them part of family. I invite them to family functions. I invite them to birthday parties for the family and stuff like that. So mine's all about family. A lot of guys, they want to have like their head guy, their physio guy, and all kinds of other guys, and that's the way they do it. Me, I like to have family around me, as I consider it. And from sponsors to agents to actual family, I consider them all family.
Awesome, that's great. Share with us that your golf family. Obviously, your brother and sister are golfers as well professionally. Share a little bit about them.
My little sister is 24 years old, and she's been for the last like 5 years one of the top five golfers in the world. Lexi Thompson, number one women's or U.S. American golfer, and she's a hard worker, absolutely talented individual, and great. And my little brother Curtis, also a FITTEAM ambassador. He's 26. He's got more talent than he knows what to do with. And he's a really good golfer, and we're just working hard on trying to help him progress as fast and as good as possible.
So where do you think where did you guys think you got your golf talent from and that work ethic? Obviously, to have two siblings that are also professionals, it must have came from somewhere.
I don't know exactly. I mean, my dad, when it was just me, he got down to being a pretty solid golfer. My mom played a little bit in high school, but I think more or less it was a lot of hard work between the three of us. I would say Curtis probably has the most like natural talent for it, but I mean, it's been a lot of hard work between all three of us.
So you're a role model for many people looking up to you that want to play the game. What advice or what tips do you have for someone that's one just getting started, then two that's been playing for a while?
I mean, the biggest tip that I have, especially for the kids nowadays, is I'm a big believer in going to college, especially on the men's side, because it's a great career, but it is one that is quite hard to make it. And you see a lot of kids now that are going to maybe 1 year of college or foregoing college altogether. And for every one that makes it, I don't know the exact stat, but there's got to be a ton that don't. And then you just don't have anything to fall back on. So I believe going to college and the maturity level. You play golf, you can play golf into your 50s, obviously. You look at the guys on the Champions Tour now, and they're still crushing it. So honestly, in my eyes, there's no reason to push it at 18 or 19 when you can come out at 22. And be that much more seasoned, and just have that much more time of playing competitive golf under your belt. And the biggest thing is you have a fallback plan. You have your degree to use if you need it.
So what tips do you have for somebody, is it that's going to separate that person that does advance from the many, many, many that don't? I mean, what do you think it is? What's that little difference?
Sometimes there's definitely some luck involved, because you can choose one of the stages at Q school and it could be just the perfect one for you. Or that year the wind blew a little bit and it took 9 under instead of 14 under. So there is some luck involved, but working. All your preparation, as much preparation as you can put into whatever you have next. Whether it's playing a couple more practice rounds, doing a little bit more coursework, finding the proper caddy for it. There's just a lot of different things that can go into it, and just work.
So you brought up the caddy. I think that's an important point. Talk a little bit about the importance of having a good caddy.
It helps a lot. Some people, and it's different for everybody, some people want to be able to mesh with their caddy well so that they have a good flow on the golf course, good vibe. Some people want their caddy to know the golf course a little bit better than others. So it's different on the person, but a caddy can be a really helpful thing. Granted, I will say, if you're playing really well, the caddy can only help you a little bit. Because, when you're on, you're on. But I think the caddy can help you when you're maybe not having your best of days, is when he's the most helpful, or she.
You talked about when you're on, and it seems like golf can be a streaky sport. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a mental thing? Do you think you just the confidence? What do you think that is? That
it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of the mental aspect to golf when it comes to managing. But golf is, they like to say it's a game of inches. If it were inches, it'd be a lot easier. We're talking like eighths and sixteenths and 30 seconds of an inch. And that could mean the difference between you making millions of dollars and not having your card. So it's such a fickle game that when you're on, your confidence gets boosted and you feel like you're on top of it. And when this game kicks you, it kicks you really hard, unfortunately, because just being just that littlest bit off can just produce bad play for the day.
What do you do to raise your belief in yourself when you're going through tough times? We have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this. What advice would you have for them that are struggling? They're maybe a little down on themselves, just like maybe you're went through a tough hole or a tough week. What do you do to pick yourself back up?
You just kind of step back to the basics as much as possible. And like one thing I do is I'll go play a practice round and I won't aim for a pin. I'll aim for the center of every green. And just because if you hit a lot of greens, you really can't putt that bad to where you play poorly. You might not play great because you're going to have a lot of long putts, but just aiming more for the centers of the greens to get your confidence up and saying, oh, I hit 17 greens today. Don't think like you hit it at the center of the green, so you might not have hit it close to that many holes, but you did what you wanted and you hit it in the centers of the greens and on as many greens as possible. And then you go from there. Once you feel like you've hit a day's worth of good shots to the center of the greens, then maybe if you like to go hit it right to left, you bring some balls into a left pin. And then once you've accomplished that, then you feel comfortable moving it over to a right pin and either trying to work it left or right in, or aiming at a little right and bring it into that pin. So, it's all about back to the basics and boosting that confidence some.
I love that answer. I love back to the basics because I say that over and over and over again. If you're ever not getting the results you want, if you go back to the basics and start there and then readjust, it seems like then you can break through. Mm-hmm. So that's a great answer. I love it. What plans do you have today and the next few years and forward? What plans or goals do you have for yourself?
Today I'm going to go play with the kids. But I'm ramping up my game and practicing a lot and getting ready for second stage of Q school. I have a conditional status on the Corn Ferry and I want to better it. So I'm going back to the school for that, due to the fact that what had been 2 years ago I was injured for the majority of the year and couldn't pick up a club for 6 months, and it's just truly last year I didn't play bad, but I was rusty and I missed more cuts that year than I have in my career by one. So it's just a little bit of rust. I'm kind of dusting that rust off and trying to sharpen the game, get it ready for that, and then next year for the Corn Ferry Tour and some Monday qualifiers and stuff like that for the PGA Tour. And goal is to graduate, be on the PGA Tour in 2021. Yeah, 2021, and then play as well as I can and try to get myself into that top 50 in the world.
How do you come back from an injury? I mean, it's got to be it's just got to beat you down, and we've seen, obviously athletes do it, and it's got to be one of the hardest things mentally and physically to do.
It's tough, and I mean, I never really believed this saying, but they say for every day you take off, it takes 2 to get back to where you were, and it's so true. It's unbelievable because, I mean, I literally didn't pick up a golf club for 6 months because of injury, and it took me, I'm now back to where I was prior to the injury, and it's been over a year. So it's tough, but it's obviously very doable. And just making sure that you take care of yourself and work as hard as you can and honestly balance life as good as possible.
Say that quote one more time. For every day you take off.
For every day you take off, it takes 2 to get back to where you were before that day you took off.
Yeah, exactly. That's powerful. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up? What's a few things maybe you can think of you haven't shared that you'd like to talk about or mention that you want people to know about you?
I mean, I've played this game for 15 years professionally on one of the major tours, and it's been great, but it's been hard. So, and now, I mean, I've got a family, my wife and 2 kids. I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and it's a little bit harder at times, but I mean, while I'm just your average person that hits a golf ball good, I mean, I've got the same things as everybody else when it comes to kids. I want to be around my kids as much as possible. I have to travel. They come with me some, and it's absolutely amazing at times. And I mean, everybody has their ups and downs with it. It's kind of tough when you've been gone for 2 or 3 weeks, and your little 2-year-old gets on FaceTime and says, "Dad, when you coming home?" It's kind of tough, but it's always nice when you come home and they run into your arms.
Mm-hmm. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And you're showing your children, you're showing them by example to go out and live out their dreams.
Correct. Live out their dreams and work as hard as possible.
Nick Thompson, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you being a FITTEAM ambassador in your sport in the local area and everything that you just shared, all the insight you shared with everybody today.
Thank you very much. It's been great, and you guys are great.